She's a kid who never went to school. Now she's an adult who hasn't got a job. Why does anyone listen to Greta Thunberg, the doom goblin? She was on the BBC yesterday. The way Andrew Marr behaved, you'd think he had Jesus Christ Almighty had popped into the studio, that it was the second coming or something. I'm confused as to why anybody ever listens to the doom goblin. Let's talk to political commentator Connor Tomlinson, who's in the studio. Hi, Connor.
Hello, Kevin. I don't know how you expect me to keep a straight face over in the corner of the studio.
I'm not expecting you to keep a straight face.
It's pretty impossible at times like these. I genuinely watched that Andrew Marr interview ahead of obviously coming here tonight, and because we like to do a bit of prep here in Talk Radio so we can get all the greatest headlines for all of our viewers, and I was waiting for her to say literally anything of substance whatsoever.
Yeah.
It completely stunned me that anyone still listens to this human being, because she was trotted out at 16, shielded by the media and all the Hollywood class that reposted her speech on every Instagram feed that made me unfollow them all, and we essentially said, oh, we can't criticise her because she's a child and she's autistic, right? Okay, so we say, oh, you can say whatever you want in the political sphere, but we can't get away with saying anything to you. Well, now you're 18 and should know better. Well, have you studied any of the issues particularly? I don't think she's read the IPCC report, because she clearly doesn't know any of the claims. When Andrew Marr decided to question her on, oh, what about Britain's emissions? Well, she didn't read the other report, because DEFRA actually puts out facts that it considers our consumption emissions in the thing. Why are we bothering talking to this woman when she doesn't have anything useful to say?
I mean, she's become a sort of focal point for the climate change obsessionalists, and I kind of get that. But it does surprise me. I mean, I remember at the height of her sort of fame, do you remember that picture of sort of Michael Gove and all those ministers looking up at her adoringly?
Oh, yeah.
And it's kind of the cult of the kid, isn't it? It's worshipping children like they did in Marxist, in
Soviet Union as well.
China,
they had their little statue of that girl that died on the plane
Chairman
crash.
Mao's China, Stalin's Russia. You get the cult of worshipping children in these kind of totalitarian states, but we seem to have it now all over the world when it comes to Greta Thunberg. I mean, what's the point of her?
There seems to be a simultaneous deference to children, some sort of authority. I know the SNP want to create child climate councils. That was one of the things they were consulting on a little while ago. And we did that, and I said to when I was reading through it, we were asked as an organisation to feed back to them. And I said, a child is not a moral legislator on anything. If you can't pick your own bedtime, you can't tell me how to save the world. But then at the same time, we have all these activists running around like Extinction Rebellion and Insulate Britain, all these other clowns like the Sunrise Movement in America, inducing climate anxiety in our children. Now, the disturbing thing is, if you idiots...
It's a big thing now, and adults.
Exactly. If you idiots want to sit in the road, right, it should absolutely be prosecuted on, we've got the injunction there already. Greta Thunberg turns around and said, oh, as long as nobody's getting hurt, it doesn't matter. Well, people are getting hurt. But if you people want to risk your lives and run the possibility to get run over, be my bloody guest. The moment you infiltrate the classrooms, it becomes particularly pernicious, because lockdown has just exacerbated the child mental health crisis. You've got 1 in 6 kids now, as of 2021, who might have a diagnosable mental health condition because we locked them in their homes for 18 months. And now you're foisting these doomsday prophecies on them and internalising the fact that they won't have a future. If the only person who's being told, how dare you, is going to be the climate activists at this point. Stop screwing with children.
And as you say, she doesn't come out with any particular facts. It's just a sort of emotional, how dare you, and all that, So where are the facts? What I want is definitive facts that prove that mankind is entirely responsible for what they used to call global warming, but they're now called climate change. The fashionable phrases do tend to change as time evolves. But we don't know that, do we?
No, it's funny how Boris turned around and said it's irrefutably scientifically true today that mankind is entirely responsible for climate change, and it was such a fact that hit him so hard that he fell asleep at a talk as well as Joe Biden did, so he's clearly very concerned about all this. I'd love to also know if Greta Thunberg
Joe, but did Boris fall asleep?
Yeah, there's a photo of Boris nodding off.
But you expect Joe to fall asleep.
It's about the only sensible thing those two have done for years. The thing is with Greta as well, she hasn't proposed any actual solutions. She seems to be saying all this hubbub of raise awareness. Well, as you said, I think it's about time we're due in for a little bit of lowering awareness.
My campaign to lower awareness of climate change.
We're sick of being told how we're all responsible for 1%, exactly 1% of the apocalypse in this country. Greta hasn't suggested a single suggestion as to how to solve this problem. She seems to just foist it off on everyone else.
She's also, it strikes me, representative of this kind of movement in the West they're left-leaning, and they are reluctant to point the finger at the real villains, the socialist dream of China and indeed Russia. They don't like pointing the finger at China and Russia, so they spend all their time moaning about us. We produce 1% of the world's pollution. In other words, we're not even a player in this. It doesn't matter what Britain does. There's nothing we can do to change the world or the course of climate change. But China produces 28%, and yet Greta never seems to want to focus any of her theatrical fury on Beijing or Xi Jinping.
Well, there's a bit of tragic.
Who isn't at COP26?
Oh, yeah, well, again, someone made a conveniently sensible decision to do that there. One of the tragic bits of gold from the Andrew Marr interview with Greta Thunberg was when he asked her, are you in contact with climate protesters in China? And she sort of weaseled her way around and said, oh, yeah, well, we're trying to. We haven't got the right to. It's like, well, obviously not.
Otherwise, no.
Yeah, obviously not, because unfortunately, all the protesters that like to criticise the government in China have a tendency of ending up on the wrong side of a tank track tread. Yeah. So it's highly unlikely that she's actually going to be taking China to task, because she'll be taken to task by her own handlers. The other disturbing thing as well is, as you said, with her being very left-leaning, have you read her co-authored piece in the Syndicate Project paper by any chance?
Yeah, well, funny enough, Connor, no, I haven't.
Oh, okay. Well, it's very illuminating because she co-wrote it with two other activists, and they said, actually, the climate is a perfect opportunity to address things like white supremacy and patriarchy and all that and that. So it's just a Trojan horse for their preferred social issues, exactly like Extinction Rebellion, exactly like Insulate Britain. They want to package on this identity socialism along to the issues of the day. First it was global cooling, then it was global warming, now it's climate change. I mean, look, I'm perfectly happy to say we should address environmental issues, but am I convinced the sun's going to descend from the sky and eat us unless we somehow overthrow the patriarchy? No, I'm quite not.
It's not an emergency, is it?
I wouldn't say so, especially because the 2050 IPCC target doesn't say anything about the entire world going to hell in a handbasket. In the last 100 years, the natural disaster deaths have been lowered by 99%, purely due to tech innovation, even though they've increased in likelihood. And it comes out, the Committee on Climate Change said the other day, even if we met the 2050 targets, even if the whole world did it, do you know what the odds are on it if it actually do anything? 50%. It's a literal coin flip. Yeah, so we could be imploding the entire world, especially us, at the expense of China with that Cold War that we're currently ongoing with them, and it wouldn't do a damn bit of difference.
I'm asking the question tonight, Connor. Do you think that COP26 will be an own goal? Because I think people are already looking at the incredible opulence of all these world leaders who popped off at the lovely eternal city of Rome for a few days for a G20, marched around there for photo ops, had lovely banquets, champagne receptions, then all hopped on their private jets, flew to Glasgow for COP26, but Joe Biden arrived in Air Force One, the most eco-unfriendly form of transport known to man. There's about 7 people on board. It's a 747. And he arrived with over 100 staff and 85 cars. So I think the people of Britain, the people of the world, are looking at this and saying this is a grotesque display of hypocrisy, and therefore we will not be lectured to by these hypocrites.
The conservative estimates of their emissions of the private jet and the car envoys alone are more than Scotland emits for the entire year. So it's entirely ridiculous. As well, if you saw the photos with not just the mask theatre when they put them on to then take them off for the photos, but everyone that was mobbing Greta was wearing the disposable plastic masks. There are more of those in our oceans than jellyfish at the moment, and we bought them all from China, who are producing them all, who are doing the most emissions. Seems a bit self-defeating there. My concern as well is I actually care about some of these issues. Like
I know you do. Yeah.
Well, everyone, like yourself, you care very much about the welfare of animals. I care about clean water, clean air, and not make sure my parks aren't despoiled.
I'm not unconcerned about it. I just think we as a species, if you like, we're going about it the wrong way.
Exactly, and that's my thing. I think this is going to put a lot of people off the sensible solutions, the alternatives. That's why hopefully we're up there to have the conversation about how much it costs when they won't certainly have it at the table because they're just spending all of your money. But I think the boiling point conversation at the moment of having a referendum about net zero, even though I'm perfectly happy to say, net zero would be a desirable goal, I don't think we'll hit it by 2050, I think that's a perfectly legitimate concern to have, to say, hey, the Conservatives weren't elected on this. We didn't vote blue to get green. We voted you on get Brexit done and national sovereignty. And now you're selling away our futures and a load of debt. So should we have a referendum on net zero after COP26 comes about it? I think that's going to be one of the main points of conversation.
Would you agree with me? I suspect and I fear, I don't want COP26 to fail, but I think it's going to be a spectacular failure, an own goal. It's going to achieve exactly the opposite opposite of what it sets out to achieve, and that is it's going to put people off the cause of climate change because they don't want to be lectured to by hypocrites who are basically saying, don't do as we do as we say. The people of Britain don't put up with that stuff.
No good idea is ever paired with an insult. And if you're going to tell people that you're putting out of work, that they can't put a roof over their kid's head and food on the table, oh, suck it up, you're a climate denier, you're not going to get anyone on side. So I think it's going to be a pretty spectacular disappointment, given that it seems to be all big spending socialism. It's going to internalise all the risks and none of the rewards on the British taxpayer, and I don't think it's even going to meet the targets, just like the Paris Accords did. They set them out in 2015. Did every nation exceed them? Yes. Did the only nation that quit was under President Trump in the US? They were the ones that led lowering emissions from 2017 to 2019, year on year. So it shows you don't need these big term agreements, you just need sensible policy making. I don't think we're going to get that in Glasgow this year.
Yeah, and Boris, of course, said that history will judge the world leaders who don't step up at this COP26 conference. Why does he say that? I mean, history hasn't judged the world leaders that didn't step up the 25 previous useless COP26 events. So it's all verbiage, it's all nonsense. And I've listened to what you've had to say, Connor. You've laid out your arguments, and I just need to say to you, how dare you? How dare you? No, it's great stuff, Connor. Thank you so much for coming in. Connor Tomlinson, political commentator from Young Voices UK organisation.